Hi there, welcome to Fostering Resilience. My name is KJ Foster. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you information about a condition called anhedonia. And so there are a few reasons why I think that this is particularly relevant, this topic, right? So number one is that it is something that is commonly experienced by people who are recovering from addiction. And so my videos are all about substance abuse, addiction, codependency issues, and helping people to become stronger and more resilient and overcome, and not just overcome, but thrive in their recovery. So this is particularly relevant to my channel and the topics that I cover. And also it's something that I wish I had known about in my early recovery process, because it would have made it so much easier. Also, number three is based upon the times that we're in right now, the circumstances of the world, right, where we're being asked to social distance, even staying at home, you know, staying in our homes and not going out and not being able to gather in groups. This is particularly relevant because it's something that is making it much more difficult for people who are especially in the early phases of recovery to stay sober. You know, it's putting people at a very high risk for relapse, and anhedonia in and of itself puts people at risk for relapse. And I think that having to stay home and this challenge that, you know, people in early recovery and all phases of recovery are faced with today can exacerbate those kinds of issues. Okay, so let's start with, well, what is anhedonia? And it's interesting because I asked my son when he was just here recently, he had stopped by the house, and I asked him, because he is also recovered. He's recovered from an addiction to drugs, and particularly opiates, and anhedonia is something that is very commonly associated with recovery from alcoholism or opiates, but it also is something that is experienced by stimulant users and cannabis users. But it's very common when you're recovering from an addiction to alcohol and or opiates. So I asked him, have you ever heard of anhedonia? And of course he was, like a lot of people, no, what is that? And so when I started to explain it to him, being that anhedonia is a complete lack of being able to feel any kind of pleasure, right? So I've heard it referred to as this feeling of just like blah, right? Where you can't really feel anything, you know, nothing really gives you pleasure. There's low energy, low mood. It's actually this anhedonia is a common symptom of major depressive disorder, okay? And it's also a common symptom of some other mental illnesses as well, but we're talking about it today relative to addiction recovery. And so when I explained it to him, I said, did you experience this, you know, when you were recovering, you know, from your opiate addiction? And he said, absolutely, yeah, totally. And then I asked him, just out of curiosity, well, how long did it take before you started to feel, you know, right? Before you started to feel something? And he said, you know what, I think it actually took about 6 months before I started feeling better. And that fell right into what I've read, what I've researched, what I've, you know, heard other people share, and that is that anhedonia generally will last anywhere from 6 to 12 months. He said he knows some friends, and he said maybe, you know, because it's been several years for him, he said maybe it was even longer, but I know it was at least 6 months. And so this 6 months to 12 months, even sometimes longer, because of course it depends upon your level of use, right? So not only how long you used for, but how much you used, because this is why it happens, okay? It happens based upon, and this is a very simplistic explanation, based upon the bombardment, the dopamine bombardment to your brain, okay? So basically your brain gets damaged. Your neurotransmitters get damaged as a result of the bombardment of the drug. And so when you stop taking the drug, then that's when you go from these generally feelings when you're in active addiction, right, of thrill, excitement, you know, a high level of energy and things like that. So you basically flatline. I've heard it referred to as flatlining. It's like all of your emotions completely flatline, and it stays that way for a considerable amount of time. And so this is why it's important to know, because to normalize, right? To normalize that this is something that, you know, to expect that you're going to experience this. It's a normal, you know, response to your brain healing, okay? So your brain needs to regenerate, and the good news is that the neurotransmitters can regenerate and that they can heal, right? But that process of healing takes a really long time. And this applies to a lot of other symptoms that you may experience relative to post-acute withdrawals. So if you'd like to check out one of my videos, I have a whole series on post-acute withdrawals. You can go ahead and check it out. I have a card that's going to come across the screen, and you can go learn more about post-acute withdrawals in general relative to a number of different symptoms. This is just one particular condition that is generally associated most commonly, I believe, with opiate withdrawal and post-acute withdrawal, but it can also be experienced by people who are recovering from any type of drug. And sometimes it can be intermittent, right? Whereas in my son's case, he said it was 6 months of blah, you know, 6 months of like low energy, not really feeling excited about life in general or anything. But I think for some people it can like come and go too as your brain is healing, again, depending upon your level of use. But expect it, that this is something that you're going to experience. So this is why during this time of social distancing and people having to stay at home, that it's really important to know, because there are some things that you can do that will help you to move through that, to help you. I say it's not like your brain is necessarily going to repair itself any quicker per se, but it's going to help you to kind of like get through it, right? To get through it without relapsing. That's the key, right? Because a lot of people will pick up and use because they're so frustrated with the not being able to feel, right? They just want to feel something, so they'll pick up a drink or a drug just so that they can feel again. And really it's about pushing through, you know, and getting through it so that you're not what I refer to as falling right down to the bottom of the pit again, right? And having to work your way out. So giving yourself time, and there are definitely things that you can do that will help you to just move through this condition. Here are some suggestions on how you can get through anhedonia without relapsing. Number one is socialization, which is really difficult right now to do, and it's also contrary to what you're going to want to do, right? Because when we're experiencing anhedonia and we're really not, you know, feeling much motivation or any kind of pleasure from any type of activity, the last thing we want to do generally is to reach out and to connect with other people. But this is where, you know, taking action and rising above those feelings, right? Rising above the desire to stay isolated, to disconnect, and reaching out and participating in an online meeting. Even if you know that you're not going to get any enjoyment out of it, just through the action of participating in that meeting is going to help you to move forward and move through that experience of anhedonia. And also picking up the phone and calling somebody, and making sure that you're calling somebody who you know can provide you with some empathy, with some support, not somebody who's going to bring you down, and really making an effort to take that action to connect with others. Another suggestion would be to consider taking an antidepressant. And of course, this is, you know, not something that I would recommend that you just call up your doctor and you ask them for a prescription for an antidepressant. This is something where I recommend that you get evaluated first, right? Because, like I mentioned earlier, anhedonia is a symptom of major depressive disorder. And sometimes it's difficult to distinguish what you're experiencing, right? Because some people in the early phases of recovery struggle with major depressive, you know, maybe this may be co-occurring in addition to the substance use, right? So making sure you know what you're dealing with and getting evaluated by an addictionologist or a psychiatrist who specializes in addiction recovery. And so I recommend that whatever doctor you go to, not just picking them out of like a list that you got from your insurance company, but getting a referral from somebody you know, somebody you trust, who has been to that doctor and knows them, because people will say that they're experienced, you know, and work with people who struggle, you know, who are seeking to overcome and recover from addiction, and they're not as knowledgeable as they say they are. So just really being careful with who you choose, but taking the time to get evaluated and talking about perhaps whether an antidepressant makes sense for you, because I know it did for me. Like, I needed something to get me over that hump, you know, and it worked. You know, it was really helpful. And so what I, you know, share with people is I would much rather see you take an antidepressant for a few months than relapse, right? So it's, you know, a lot of people have, you know, strong opinions about antidepressants, but the bottom line for me is, if it's going to save you, you know, keep you from and save you from relapsing, then why not at least consider it and talk to your doctor about it? Another recommendation is psychotherapy, going to see a therapist. And just by virtue of going to see a therapist and talking about your issues and getting some more tools and some more recommendations and feedback from that therapist will help you to move through that anhedonia without relapsing. Another suggestion is a regular sleep schedule, and this is something that is really challenging, right, in the early phases of recovery, because it's also another insomnia. Sleep disturbances is another symptom of post-acute withdrawals. It's another symptom of what happens as your brain is continuing to heal. So it's a big struggle. But I think the important thing to remember, and what I'm really suggesting here when it comes to sleep, is to have a regular sleep schedule. So the more that you're able to keep a structure, you know, that you're able to like go to bed at the same time, you know, at least try to, at least attempt to, and get up at the same time each day, the more that you're structured in your sleep pattern, that's going to help you with that experience of anhedonia. Another suggestion, which is one of my favorites, and it's one that has truly helped me all throughout my recovery process in the early phases of recovery, and it still helps me to this day, is physical exercise. And through physical exercise, it provides you with this natural endorphin release, which is going to help with, obviously, the anhedonia. It's going to help to naturally elevate your mood. And so the more that you're able to exercise, you know, not going to the extreme, but just, you know, 3 or 4 times a week, getting your heart rate up, doing 20, 30 minutes of exercise is going to help you with the anhedonia. Yoga is one physical activity in particular that has been shown to improve anhedonia symptoms. So if that's something that you've done in the past, you know, and I know it's really hard when you're in that place of nothing really giving you pleasure, but taking the action anyway, you know, moving forward and going through the motions of, you know, doing the yoga exercises will ultimately help you with your anhedonia. Dietary improvements will make all the difference in the world, quite frankly, when it comes to not only anhedonia, but your other post-acute withdrawal symptoms that you may experience. You know, loading up on caffeine is not going to be good for you. Loading up on the sugar, this is where, you know, having balance and minimizing those things that are within your control, right? These things that you can control that are going to help you when it comes to reducing those symptoms. Getting out in nature is another recommendation. Getting out, getting fresh air, going for a walk, choosing a place in nature where maybe you can sit and meditate. One of the favorites of my son is a walking meditation. So getting out in nature and walking and just practicing some mindful meditation as you're walking, or put on your headphones and listen to some positive, uplifting music and just take in the beauty of the nature that's around you will help you with your anhedonia. And finally, my last suggestion is visualization. Okay, so practicing visualizing yourself enjoying the things that you used to enjoy doing, enjoying the things that you want to enjoy doing, right? So visualizing yourself being there already. Visualize yourself being where it is that you want to get to, right? That end result. By visualizing that, you're fueling it within your brain, and it's going to help you move through that anhedonia. Okay, so obviously all of these suggestions are very hard to do when you are in that state of anhedonia, right? So it's really difficult, but what I'm suggesting is that you go against that nature, that you rise above that desire to not do anything and take action. And then I'm also going to make this suggestion to you if you are somebody who's not experiencing anhedonia, right? You're maybe further along in your recovery process. Maybe you're the family member and you don't know, like I don't even know maybe if my loved one is experiencing anhedonia. Whatever the case may be, I'm going to suggest that you take the time today to reach out to somebody else, right, who may be experiencing anhedonia or any other symptoms that come along with that early recovery process, because this is what it takes sometimes. It takes somebody else reaching out and saying, how are you? Or saying, listen, I'm attending this meeting online. Why don't you join me? Why don't you come be a part of it? Sometimes we just need that other person to say, to kind of grab us by the hand and say, come on, come with me, come join me, let's do this together. And that's so important right now. So that, I have one more final suggestion other than that, okay, reaching out, helping somebody else, including them to be a part of, but also I really believe that we are in this time in our country, right, in our homes, in our communities, in the world, where we could benefit from as much prayer as possible. And so this, this has everything and nothing to do with religion, right? So if you're somebody who is religious and believes in God, as I am, then it has everything to do with that. But if you're not, it doesn't have to, because I believe that a positive thought of any kind is a prayer in and of itself, right? It's all about generating this, positive thinking. So bringing to mind somebody that you really care about and sending some positive thoughts, some positive energy, some hope to that person is a prayer in and of itself. And so taking some time today to pray for yourself, to pray for your loved ones, to even maybe pray for the nation, pray for the world, because I truly believe in the power of prayer and that we could really use some extra prayers during this time. So that's my final recommendation, and I really hope that you've benefited from this video in some way. And if you have, if you could give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, if you click on the red subscribe now button, when the bell pops up, if you click on the bell, that will alert you to all of my upcoming videos once they're posted. And I post videos every single Monday. So I hope that you'll join me back here next Monday. And in the meantime, I also conduct daily recovery support meetings. And so these meetings are not affiliated with any type of recovery program. So they're not 12-step, they're not LifeRing, they're not Celebrate, they're not Smart Recovery, but anybody that attends those, is a part of those programs, is welcome. So it's open to everybody and anybody. It's also open to family members. So I like to include individuals and family members because I think that makes for a really not only interesting, but really beneficial dynamic and insight that is gained through both parties. So if you'd like to join me on one of those meetings, they're every single day. I left a link in the description, so if you click on that link, that'll give you the daily schedule. Would love to meet you if I haven't already and get to know you. So definitely take advantage of that, and in the meantime, be well, stay safe, and remember, recovery changes everything. Namaste.